Welcome, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at Prince Harry's astrology chart. I had some people asking me in the comments if they thought it would be possible if Prince Harry and even Meghan could lose their royal titles because of what recently happened to Andrew. And so today we're going to be looking at Prince Harry's chart just to see if that's possible. People also bring up the idea that, well, Prince William's going to become king one day, and Prince William has been portrayed to be a lot more fierce about the dignity of the royal family. So that's what's got people thinking, could this be happening, maybe even when Prince William becomes king? So that's what I'm going to be looking at today using astrology. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're interested in a reading, check down below for details. And also, all statements about Prince Harry and the royal family, these are my interpretations of the astrological energies. So let's go take a look at Prince Harry's chart. I'm going to pull that up right now. Um, and the thing I want you all to know is if there was to be a public downfall, usually we're going to want to see certain planets afflicted. So, like maybe the first Lord would be afflicted, or the 10th Lord would be afflicted. We would probably see, planets in the sixth house and the eighth house. Like, for example, in Andrew's chart, there's two planets in the sixth house, two planets in the eighth house. So we're going to be looking at a few things. Also, planet wise, we're going to be looking at Jupiter. So we're going to look at Jupiter. We're going to look at the condition of Sun. And then we're going to be looking at Saturn to see, is there potential there? Now, Jupiter is the ascendant for Prince Harry. It's the first Lord. So this is all about his identity, who he is. And then Sun and Saturn are about our appearance to society, how we're perceived. So the sun would be, how do people see us? The sun represents the self. It can represent the government. Saturn represents rules, and it represents social norms. So it's important to look at all those. If we see one of those, is heavily afflicted, there could be some sort of chance that that could happen. So let me clean up the chart. And the first thing I want to point out, and I do want to make this distinction, what Meghan and Harry did with stepping away from royal duties wasn't quite the same thing as what happened with Andrew. So we are kind of looking at two very different scenarios here. So I do want to bring that out from the outset. That Harry and Meghan, it really wasn't a punishment like them being exiled. That was, they chose to step away. So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at this. But some people think maybe Prince William will just want to say, hey, if you're not having your royal duties, your titles, they're gone. So the thing about Jupiter over here, Jupiter is actually very strong in Prince Harry's chart. Jupiter actually shows somebody who is generally favorable. Now, I know people are going to talk about, well, no, he's not popular anymore, but I want you to think about how popular was Prince Harry pre-Meghan. And you probably all have to admit he was well liked. People, he had a certain amount of popularity. So that stays with him, and despite the rivalry that he may have with Prince William because they're brothers, and brothers are kind of expected to have rivalries with each other. Jupiter's in the first house. It's in its own sign of Sagittarius. It rules the fourth house. It's very strong. So Jupiter is very strong in Prince Harry's chart. So that's Jupiter rules ethics, our sense of right and wrong. So if we're viewed as ethical, which Jupiter in the first would say, well, he's ethical. Maybe we don't like his decisions. We don't like that he stepped away. But is he like this horrible bad person? No, he's a pretty good person overall. That's what Jupiter in the first house would be. The next thing we're going to look at is Sun. Okay, Sun is like, how do people perceive us? It even can represent the government. It especially represents things like royalty. Sun is in its own sign of Leo right here. Sun is in its own sign. Let me see if it's being afflicted by Saturn here. It's not being afflicted by Saturn. One, two, three, four. We're going to look at Mars right now. Six, seven, eight. It's not being afflicted by Mars. So the ninth house is not being afflicted by Mars or Saturn. It's in its own house. I would say, Sun is in fabulous condition in his astrology chart. The planet that's actually debilitated in his chart is Venus. Okay, and some people might say, well, Venus, it's debilitated. Maybe that could be a problem with public reputation. But we also have to remember there's a little bit of a mixed bag. So yeah, he is somewhat unpopular with Venus being debilitated, especially because of his romantic decisions. Like, think about what Venus represents: romantic choices, spouse. That's why he's being criticized, is because of the Venus reasons. But if we actually were to look at, well, what's the ruler of the sign of Virgo? It's Mercury. Mercury's in a good sign. It's in the sign of Leo. It's with Sun. So Mercury's actually doing pretty good. Mercury's actually not doing bad at all. So the Lord is not afflicted at all. And then when we're looking at the 10th house, it's not actually being afflicted. It's not being afflicted by Saturn. It's not being afflicted by Mars. So again, the 10th house, it just has that debilitated Venus, which could represent, okay, well, he's made some lousy, well, in his life, he's going to have some trouble with romance. And people maybe not like his decisions in love, but it's not necessarily, this is not a placement where you're going to see, this is total scandal, total downfall. That is definitely not this placement. The next thing we're going to do is we're looking at Saturn. Saturn is not being afflicted by Mars. They're 12 houses apart. Saturn is actually exalted. So Saturn is actually exalted, very strong. It rules the second house. It rules the third house. It doesn't rule bad houses. Saturn is not really harmful to Prince Harry, especially for Virgo ascendant. Or, I mean, sorry, Sagittarius ascendant. Uh, so when we're looking at social norms, so it's almost like, well, did he really break an absolute, like a moral absolute, or was it like people are more like displeased with his decision? He's very unpopular, because there's a big difference between breaking like a real strong ethical code. And I know some, please comment down below if you disagree. But it's seen as maybe distasteful, but not like it broke some sort of, well, especially if we consider in the Western world, United States, UK, there's a certain amount of personal liberty and personal freedom that people are expected to have. So that's one of the things. Now, the thing about what is going on with Rahu and Ketu, because people might point this out. Well, the karmic nodes, they're in Dashna houses, and that would be actually a really good point. Rahu in the sixth house uh, can actually kind of be a good thing in a lot of ways. Rahu in the sixth house can be like for example, and I'm using this other chart, Bill Gates has Rahu in the sixth house. And if you see like the work he did with his philanthropy around the world, that could be like Rahu in the sixth house. So Rahu is like finding an opportunity in conflict, or finding an opportunity in socially, when in certain situations in life where there's a lack of equity or there's an imbalance. That's what Rahu in the sixth house is about. But Rahu in the sixth is not necessarily scandal. What I would see more as a scandal and a sudden loss would be like if the eighth house was really involved. But sixth house is kind of like a champion of certain service and causes. And then we got Mars and K2 in the 12th house. Now, K2 can be associated with disgrace. Both Rahu and K2 can be associated with disgrace. I want you all to know that. But the 12th house, this is more of a stepping away. or a more quiet behind the scenes kind of disgrace, not really a public disgrace. Isn't that interesting? So, Rahu, in just because it's in the sixth house is not necessarily bad. If we saw Rahu and Ketu in the 10th house or in the first house, we would say, okay, well, during those periods, there could be a public disgrace. There could be a really bad situation that's happening. But this is more like K2 could show losses, stepping back. The 12th house is all about usually voluntarily giving up things. Like I said, if we look at Prince, if we look at former Prince Andrew, we'll just call him Andrew. If we look at his chart, he's got like four different planets in the sixth house. He's got two planets in the sixth house, two planets in the eighth house. And then he had transiting Saturn and Rahu, transiting Saturn in the eighth house. So, like, as of right now, if I'm looking at his chart, he's actually in a very strong period. Prince Harry, if you like him or dislike him, right now he's running a Jupiter Mahadasha. He just got into that May of 2025. All right, May of 2025. And then he's going to be in the first Antardasha. So it starts out Jupiter, Jupiter. That's how these Mahadashas work. And then it switches to Jupiter, Saturn. That's going to be in May of 2027. Remember, Saturn's not bad. In Prince Harry's chart, Saturn's not bad. We don't have translating Saturn's in the fourth house right now. We know that's going to be there till February of 2028. We have Rahu in the third house, transiting Rahu. We don't have any real transits that are showing like a disgrace. I mean, I'm talking about for the next, 5 years, I don't see any type of really disgraceful situation. Um, and so I don't see a public disgrace as in the level of what happened with Andrew by any means in this astrology chart. And I feel like actually, this might be unpopular to say with some of my subscribers. I feel like this period of time that Prince Harry's in, because he's in a Jupiter period, and a Jupiter is so strong in his astrology charts in the first house and it's in the sign of Sagittarius, this could be a time where he actually he may rebuild some of that old popularity back. He might. And I know there's a lot of people that won't forgive him for what he did, but he may get some sort of support, and it might be through King Charles himself. Okay, it might not be because I know if King Charles forgives Prince Harry, or kind of reinstates Prince Harry back into the royal family life, or what have you, people will pretty much get in line, even if Prince William doesn't like what's going on. King Charles at the end of the day has the last word. There is some reaching out right now. There's some negotiations that are happening with Prince Harry and King Charles, from what I understand. So those are ongoing. I actually see it in his favor at the moment. I'm not going to say it's permanent, but at the moment, I feel like these negotiations are more leaning in his favor. Maybe they're going to find some sort of balance. They're going to reach a balance. But maybe, if we think about what happened with Andrew, maybe this was kind of like a little bit of a, hey, there is some consequences. you know the royal family now is not a place without consequences. So maybe they kind of let that be known. The rest of the family is seeing this like, okay, well, okay, we do have certain limits. There's certain limits to our behavior. There's certain limits to what we can do. There are some consequences. Maybe there was a time, long ago, where maybe there was more, not as many. The royal family was maybe a lot more powerful in previous ages, but now there's a higher standard of accountability. So I feel like Prince Harry is going to be okay with this situation. And I feel like he might still be in this limbo that he's in for a long while. So anyways, let me know what you think down below. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.